You have any questions? All of us go to Florida. We don't.
Oh yeah, baby, let's go to Florida, gang.
I'm gonna keep seeing the bald woman.
She's as good as anybody
that's
else.
Something everyone.
Scalp was clean. She had a nice skull. There wasn't a lot of hair on it.
What? You know, you've had like a religious awakening. You're like a bald again.
Oh,
What's up?
yeah.
Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. So we've got David Cochrane, the CBC junkie, calls himself a journalist. He's not. Like, we've seen the way that he was hardballing Andrew Scheer in the last couple of videos. He's got blowhead Melanie Joly here, and now he's going to play law ball all the time, promoting the Liberals. Watch this. We'll take a peek together. Let's go.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
So we're going to watch this goof right here.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is back from Washington with praise
Lord.
from the president, but no changes to U.S. tariffs. And today, Carney briefed Canada's
There's a brief piece here about Carney and Trump's meeting before we get into Melanie Joly.
premiers on what happened behind closed doors.
Everyone congratulated him on how he performed. Didn't matter what political stripe we came from. No one expected to sign a deal, but I'll tell you, it was a massive step forward.
I think it was a positive baselining of the new relationship. I think it was a positive establishment of mutual
premiers
respect and
are
understanding,
horrible.
and just the desire of Canada to get to bed.
David Eby is a fraud. Like, how did that election go down, really? Remember?
Brock here, what is your position, Mr. President?
And it's not just the premiers, as Trump himself gave Carney a glowing review last night and compared Carney with former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
This is a big step up. It's a good step up for Canada. I watched very closely. I thought he did really terrifically in the debates. I like him. You know, he's a nice man. We get along very well. We had a great meeting today. Really good. I think the relationship's going to be very strong.
Okay, so what did Mark Carney achieve behind closed doors?
That is the question. What did Mark Carney achieve behind closed doors? Ask Jeffrey Epstein.
Minister of Foreign Affairs Melanie Joly was part of the Canadian delegation that met with President Trump in Washington, and she joins me now. Minister, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, David. It's a pleasure to be here.
The tone of the meeting seemed to be friendlier than some of the rhetoric.
Again, it's all law ball from here on out. Like, Melanie Joly is a twit. David Cochrane is a twat. Like, we're just going to watch.
In recent weeks and months, but the issue set remains largely unresolved at the end of the meeting. So what has fundamentally changed with the meeting between the Prime Minister and the President?
Well, the goal of the Prime Minister and the Canadian delegation was clearly to establish a new partnership on trade and security with the U.S. And so what you saw in the Oval Office and following afterwards for a lunch was really the fact that we're putting the new foundations to make sure that that partnership is able to come to fruition. And at the same time, you're really seeing a fresh start, a new approach between Canada and the U.S., which is really important.
So where does that go from here in terms of process? Do we look at like formal negotiating teams like we saw during the NAFTA renegotiations during the first Trump term? Or is it more ad hoc working groups, minister to minister? Like, what is the shape and structure of the process at this point?
Listen, David, I know that there's a lot of interest out there for a lot of the details, but in diplomacy, sometimes details are left behind closed doors. What I can tell you, though, is we will be working on this new partnership. We will be coming up as two sovereign nations, also approaching our trade relation, our security relations. And ultimately, we want to make sure that we can show the world how we're able to have an approach that is pragmatic and makes sense with the U.S. Because all countries on earth right now are in this position of negotiating with the U.S. And at the same time, we know that Canada is the biggest client of the U.S. And we also know that President Trump...
She knows a lot of things. Zip, zip. Oh, Lord.
Has been quite affected politically, I would say negatively, by what has happened on the trade side. And so we want to make sure ultimately that we are able to lead the conversations. But as you and I know, and all those watching us, the cabinet has not been appointed yet.
Right.
We're just 1 week after the elections. We got a strong mandate from Canadians to make sure that we would be defending Canada's sovereignty, protecting Canadian jobs, and making sure that we're able to handle the White House. And that's exactly what we'll do.
Right, but I guess what I'm trying to establish is we're not at the start of a formal renegotiation of CUSMA, are we? Or is it too early to know? I guess is my question, because it seemed like obviously this is the start of something. It just isn't clear to me what that something will be.
So what was the idea of the team was to make sure first and foremost that Prime Minister Carney and President Trump could meet. That they could have a personal
She looks good for a person that's strung out.
relationship that is important. Why? Because we know that President Trump is the sole decider of what's going on within the U.S. administration. And therefore, that relationship is key. It was shown not only in the public through a media conference, but also afterwards through a how would say productive conversation that is established now. They know each other. They got to spend time together. Now the next steps are definitely to see what can be done on the trade side and on the security side. We've never done both together at once. We know we've been
I think that maybe your boy Mark Carney has done all of those things on Epstein's Island. He did them all at once. That's what he paid for.
Dependent on the U.S. for too long. We know, meanwhile, that we have to be closer to the UK. We definitely have to be closer to the EU and closer to key Asian countries. And that's what we'll do. So we will have to not only bear in mind that we are in a trade war with the U.S. and that we, of course, want to lift tariffs, but we don't want to deal with damage to our economy that would be long-lasting. So that's why we want to have a much more holistic approach. And at the same time, what we want...
It's a holistic approach, guys. Holistic. These woke folk, man.
to do is to make sure that we keep our doors open to new opportunities that we can have with Europe and with Asia that will help us make sure that we cut that over dependency. So that's our approach. Of course, we're a new government. Of course, not all ministers have been like the new cabinet.
We're a new government. They've been running the game since 2015, guys.
Has not been appointed. And of course, we know that being the biggest client of the U.S., we can show the world how to approach the U.S. So it's a big agenda. There's a lot of ambition, but at the same time, I think we have the right prime minister and the right team to handle it.
Okay, the president did repeat.
She said that about Trudeau. That she always backed Trudeau. She's Trudeau's girl.
His belief that Canada will be better off as the 51st state in the public portion yesterday in the Oval Office, though he suggested it more as this is a good idea rather than this is a clear goal of his administration. I'm just wondering how you and the Prime Minister and others interpreted those comments in the public meeting, and how did that align with what was said in the private conversations? I know you probably won't give very specific details on that, but how would you broadly describe the conversations around the 51st state agenda?
I think the Prime Minister's answer was just perfect in the sense that he said, first and foremost, Canada's not for sale. And the only owners of Canada, which are Canadians, are saying clearly that is not the case. And so we will be able to negotiate but and deal with each other as two sovereign nations, period.
But the president doesn't seem to take no for an answer there, right? He kept saying never say never, never say never, and it was hard to tell if it was joking or serious. I mean, how did you view it based on the full meetings?
you're not the first colleague asking me, that question, but the question is, why don't you say what Prime Minister Carney said after he said never say never? Prime Minister Carney said never, never, never. So that's it. That's, Canada's not for sale. And when it comes to our sovereignty, it's not up for discussion, period. And I said that also when Marco Rubio was in Canada at the time. I said, we're proud people, hardworking people. We'll defend our sovereignty. And when you come here, you respect it, period. And what we know also is President Trump will be coming to Kananaskis in Alberta in June for the G7. So basically, the question of Canada's sovereignty is not on the table. And second, what is on the table is how can we handle
on the table
a trade relationship at the time of a trade war? How can we handle a security relationship with the U.S. at a time where the U.S. has decided to not play the same role around the world, and therefore there's way much more instability in the world? And what are Canada's interests, and how can we protect jobs at home? How can prices go down? How can families be reassured? And how can ultimately we be strengthened as a country? And this is the mandate that Canadians gave us, and this is exactly the job that the Prime Minister, myself, and the government will be doing.
Do you have a sense from these conversations of the future direction of the tariffs that they've put in place? Whether there is a hope to get the fentanyl tariffs down, say, sometime soon, or just where these things go, the duration of those and the impact of those, the longer they last, the more painful it would be. So do you have a clear sense? I know there's so many tariffs, it's difficult to keep track of them all, but of just where they may go in terms of dropping some of this, because the president is not a man who likes to back down.
Well, a couple of things on that. We have to do a job at home to make sure that we take care of our own economy, that we create at-home jobs, that we are able to invest in our own defense sector, in our own manufacturing jobs, in making sure that these very smart, intelligent, very hardworking people working in the auto sector and in the aluminum and steel sector are able not only to continue to have a job, but that their families know that they can have a job even in that sector one day if they wish to. So we need to make sure that when we have this plan in mind, and we have a very ambitious plan, that people are not living in...
Truer words have never been spoken. Their plan is ambitious. Lets them eat the bugs.
Constant anxiety, that they're reassured, that they know that their government has their back. So that's what we will do. Of course, the throne speech will be coming. The King Charles, our sovereign, will be coming to Canada. It will be a clear marker of Canada's sovereignty. We will be able to present our plan at that point. The cabinet will be established. Let's all remember the elections happened just a week ago. We already went to meet with the President of the United States. So things are really going quickly, efficiently. And at the same time, what we'll do is we want to have an approach that is general, I would say holistic, to negotiating. And so trying to not to fall into the trap of having, lifted a tariff and another one popping up. So our goal is to make sure that we are able to have that negotiation and able to have that clear plan to create jobs at home.
Right. Okay. So clearly, the tariffs, the security arrangement, the defense arrangements, the overall trade arrangement, we are at the beginning of a process, and where that ends and when there is some relief, it isn't clear at this point. But so much of it, based on what I saw yesterday and what you're saying today, kind of depends on that interpersonal relationship between the Prime Minister and the President.
We knew that.
Right? So
we knew that.
So how would you describe where that is? Because he took shots at former Prime Minister Trudeau, at Chrystia Freeland yesterday, and I know Prime Minister Carney did not take the bait. But where do you see that relationship in terms of President Trump was apparently peppering him with questions in the private meetings? Where do you see that dynamic between the two leaders?
I think it's a positive dynamic. We're up to a fresh start, a new start. I think there was a willingness on the part of the Prime Minister, definitely, to make sure that that's the case, but also on the part of the President. Let's all remember also that President Trump right now is under pressure back home regarding tariffs. And there's a lot of frustration amongst the American public regarding the state of the economy. And at the same time, lots of senators are very uneased regarding his tariff strategy, if there is one. So that's why I think that, and I've had conversations after the Oval Office. I went to the Senate. I met with Senator Graham. I met with Senator Rich, which are both Republican senators, and I met with Senator Kane, also, who's from the Democrat side. I had, 2 hours, so I didn't have time to see many of them, but these are the ones that I'm close to and that I value the relationship with. And definitely the job of the future foreign minister will be to make sure that we keep this relationship. And meanwhile, the job that was my job also yesterday was to make sure that we knew by talking through to many of the people that would be in the meeting at the White House.
What is Mendocino doing there?
How it would go, try to prepare it the best way possible.
Right.
So I had conversations with Marco Rubio beforehand, and at the same time, I was in contact with many foreign leaders and foreign ministers around the world who had been in the White House in this very interesting, to say the least, setting of a press conference to understand what's the dynamic.
Right.
And President Trump answers questions. Prime Minister Carney was able to answer questions, but I must say also there's a lot of media in that meeting. It's quite chaotic. It's lots of questions. Questions come from all over, from media from all over the world, and the room becomes very heated. And it's quite an experience.
No, it was quite the thing to see. I was standing right behind Stephen Miller as this was all going on, and it was quite a crush of people in a room that is smaller than you think when you see it on television. but I guess as a final point, Minister, I know you were part of some of the trips to Mar-a-Lago and meetings with the administration over the last couple of months as the relationship has been quite challenged. How was it yesterday compared to when you went to Mar-a-Lago, compared to the early days of this conflict, shall we say? Has it improved? How substantively has it changed?
I think what is important is the context has changed, David. First, we just came out of an election. We won. Prime Minister Carney has a very strong mandate. He is a new politician. He was able to really change completely the course of the election and basically come out as a winner. And I think that Prime Minister Carney was able to, because of this performance, to really get the respect from President Trump, from himself. So that's one point. Second, this was happening at a time where Liberation Day, quote unquote, happened. And President Trump has gone through a lot of economic pressure, financial pressure, and I must say a lot of political pressure. And Canada's the biggest client of the U.S.
Right.
We're the nice, reliable friend.
Is that what we are? We're the nice, reliable,
friendly neighbor. And so if all countries are going to the White House, or all countries want to go to the White House, and at this point, I think President Trump is in a mindset of wanting to have trade conversations and trade deals. He has said it many times, let's do a deal, let's do a deal. So in that context, I think things are very different than maybe 30 or 60 or 90 days ago. And that's why you were able to see the results you saw yesterday, which was a positive first meeting. But let's be frank, there will be a lot of emotions. Things may change, and there will be up and downs in the coming weeks, but we will be ready and we will hold steady.
Okay. Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly, appreciate the time today. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, David.
God damn it, that's not news! What about us?
Oh, yeah.
Melanie Joly is apparently strung out on drugs. I don't know what is up with David Cochran, man. There's so many easy jokes you could poke fun at this clown in so many different ways. Canadian federal politics, we've got to get rid of these tariffs. Is Mark Carney gonna work it out with Donald Trump? Maybe. I cross my fingers for it. I just highly doubt it. I don't think their interests are the same as the interests that Canadians that really care about Canadians have for Canadians. That's it. Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. Thank you for watching the video. We'll catch next one. Like, share, subscribe, get notified. Take care, gang.
It is really hard to put lipstick on a pig.
Oh, Randy. Where's Randy, guys? Look up. Is he up there? You up there blowing a squirrel, Randy? Oh, sorry. That squirrel identifies as a chipmunk.